Hello, MOVATI yogis. Welcome back. My name's Stephanie. I'm going to be leading you through another 60-minute Hatha yoga practice today. For today's practice, I do recommend having 2 blocks, or if you're at home, any hardcover textbook or novel, Harry Potter books, as I always say, are a great one to put in place as well, but something really firm that we can press our body weight onto. Today's class is going to be a full body Hatha practice, but we are going to be working on dynamic flexibility. So doing a little bit of strength as well as stretch in some of the poses, with our focus being on building that strength in the upper body. So modifications for any sore wrist injuries, we'll be using forearms as well and going through the practice. So when you're ready, join me on your mat in a seated position. So for you, that seated position may look like sits bones or hips down on the mat, ankles crossed one underneath the other or stacked in front, or maybe coming to be seated on a block, creating a little bit more space in the hips. Knees can fall down, might be a bit more comfortable to root up out of those hips. Once you're comfortably seated, I want you to just slowly start to bring your awareness onto the mat, creating some separation between the day that has come ahead, the day that will be after our practice, and really allowing yourself to center in to this moment, to this practice, to your body. Starting with a brief meditation today. You can softly close your eyes if you wish, and just start to take a breath in and out through the nose, allowing the breath to flow in and breathe out. Noticing the natural pace or rhythm of your breath in this moment, not affecting it, not changing it, simply observing. Feeling the tactile sensation of the breath, uniting mind to body with this breath. We strive to practice equanimity, a calmness of the mind, simply by observing the breath and not forcing or controlling. Bringing yourself to the single point of concentration moment, perhaps focusing on the areas around your nose, the sensation within the nostrils on each inhale, the sensation on the upper lip as you exhale, allowing the mind to focus on these sensations, bringing mind and body into connection. You may observe a difference or change in your breath. Where the mind goes, the breath follows. Let everything else melt away. When other thoughts, emotions, sensations arise, observe that they have arisen, and then return to the breath. As the breath flows in, allowing the ribs to expand not only to the front, but into the back body, into the sides. And as we exhale, squeezing out that breath, drawing the entire abdominal muscles in towards the spine. Inhale, using some of that strength to open up and fill. Exhale, contracting and releasing with control. next inhale, softly opening the eyes, perhaps blinking a few times to regain focus. We'll come into a side body stretch here. So on an inhale, reach both arms up overhead. Palms can be facing towards one another. And then exhale, allow the right hand to come down. Arm stays extended, fingertips touching down. Inhale, a little bit more length through that left side body. Exhale, start to bow over towards the right side, maybe walking the fingers out a little bit more. Focusing still on that connection through the hips. Let that left hip anchor down as we extend along the left side. Maybe gaze turns up towards the ceiling. Holding here for a count of 5. Inhale, rolling forward, coming back to center, and then slowly rolling into an upright seated position once more. We'll repeat on the other side. Inhale, arms reach up overhead. Exhale, left hand comes down onto the mat. That right arm stays extended. We'll inhale, finding initial length through the side body. And then exhale, bowing over, grounding through that right hip. Reaching out with that straight left arm. Perhaps gaze spirals up towards the ceiling. Holding this initial feel-good stretch along the side body. Areas that tend to crumple as we stoop, seated in the car or at a desk. Breathing into the side body, expanding, creating space. Perhaps reminding the body of the space that's there. Inhale, rolling forward and up into that seated position. We're going to roll the neck a little bit to warm up. So on an exhale, let the chin tuck down to the chest. Rolling side to side. Maintaining some strength or control in the shoulders so that they're not rolling up as the chin rolls. Pulling the elbows perhaps down towards the floor energetically. You can go as slow or as fast as you like here. On the next inhale, come back to center and roll the head up. We're going to come into tabletop position for some cat-cows. So whether that's rolling over crossed ankles or sliding the feet to one side, we'll come onto hands and knees on our mats. So knees are about hip width apart, tops of the feet flat on the mat. Moving through some cat-cows, creating mobilization in the spine. On an inhale, let the belly and heart soften down as tailbone and head rise up. Exhale, curl the tailbone, press into the hands, lifting the chest up, rounding through the shoulders. Inhale, soften, sinking down, head and tailbone rise. Exhale, curling under, pressing, lifting the chest up away from the mat. Continue to flow with the pace of your own breath. Perhaps finding space to pause in between each shape, holding that stretch for a second longer. Allowing the movement to last the entire length of the breath, only pausing at the ends. Resuming movement with the next breath. On our next inhale, come back to a flat, neutral spine, coming into puppy pose. So walking the hands forward. If you're running out of mat like I did there, maybe just stepping the knees back a little bit and then walking hands forward so chest can melt down. Hips are staying stacked over top of the knees, maybe taking the stance a little bit wider, and then melting head and chest down in between the arms. Allowing that stretch to come through the thoracic spine or across the shoulders. Coming into an upper body back bend here. If it feels comfortable in the shoulders, and the neck. Maybe bring the gaze forward towards the hands. And if there's no neck injuries, we can even place the chin down and gaze forward at the hands. Next inhale, slowly lifting the head up and sliding forward into a cobra position. So bringing the belly down at first here. And then either placing forearms down or palms floating for baby cobra, or maybe hands come down beside the ribs, under the shoulders. We're going to gently peel up off the mat on our inhale. And then exhale, slowly melt back down. Coming into our first downward facing dog of the practice, we're going to hug those elbows in, chest is open and strong, curl the toes under, core engages, and we can either reverse push up or come through tabletop, downward facing dog. Can step the feet a little bit closer, shortening your stance here. If the hamstrings are feeling a little tight, maybe try bending the knees, finding length through the body first. Maybe feeling the stretch a little more deeply in the calves when we bend the knees because the heels are coming a little closer or touching down on the mat. We can stay here with the bent knees during our first down dog of the practice, knowing on the next round we can work towards having the legs a little bit straighter. Feeling that grip through the hands and strengthening through the arms, maybe spiraling the elbows towards each other on the center line. And then inhale, bending the knees a little more. Gaze comes forward. Step the right foot in between the hands, coming into a runner's lunge. And then bring that left knee down onto the mat. Low lunge, Anjaneyasana. Option to keep the toes curled under or top of the foot flat here. And on our next inhale, peeling up, hands can interlace on the thigh or reach straight up overhead here. Fingertips reaching up towards the ceiling, actively engaging through the hands. Gaze can come forwards or come up towards the ceiling, whichever is more comfortable for your neck. Allowing the hips to sink down towards that right heel without dumping down into that front thigh. A little bit of lift up and then that opening, sinking action. And then on an exhale, folding down, hands touch down either side. Curl the left toes under, lifting that left knee and step the right foot back beside the left. Downward facing dog. Hello, down dog, number 2 of our day, maybe of our practice, maybe of our day as well. From here, we can maybe work on lengthening the legs a little longer. Heels coming a little closer down towards the mat. Still finding that deep breath, inhaling through the nose, exhaling out of the mouth. Noticing if we have an option to extend the arms out of the shoulders, maybe play with retracting the arm bones into the shoulder socket, finding a bit more support through the joints here. And then inhale, bending the knees, gaze comes forward, left foot coming in between the hands, Anjaneyasana on the other side. So right knee comes down, and on an inhale, working our way into an upright position in this low lunge. Exhale to soften down. Noticing if we start to lose stability, maybe backing out of the lunge a bit. We want to find that pelvic support so that we can then open through the upper body, gazing up towards the ceiling. Hands can come down to heart center as well if having the arms extended is a little too intense at the beginning of our practice. And then exhale, floating hands down either side of that front foot. Curl the right toes under, lifting up, downward facing dog. Step that left foot back beside the right. We'll take 2 deep inhalations and exhalations here. And on this next breath, bending the knees, gazing forward. Right foot is coming in between the hands. Warrior 1 though, Virabhadrasana 1. So left heel is gonna spiral down on the diagonal. Bending into that right leg. Inhale, rising up, arms reach up. Exhale, sinking down into that lunge position on our front leg. I want to challenge you here to keep the arms extended up if possible and bring the gaze up as well. We're going to hold for a 5 breath count here and just challenging the balance by having the gaze elevated up. Palms can stay apart, or maybe if it's okay in the shoulders and neck, bringing them together, head dropping back even more. For 3, 2, 1. Exhale, floating the hands down. Left heel rises up. We're going to step that right foot back beside the left into a plank or push-up position. Our first plank of the practice. Hello, plank. Option to bring the knees down. We're going to hold here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Chaturanga. Exhale, lower down or hover. Inhale, peeling up for your back bend. Exhale, downward facing dog. Taking a full, complete inhale through the nose. And exhale, release it out of the mouth. We're going to repeat on the other side. So inhale, bend the knees, gaze forward. Exhale, left foot comes forward, right heel pivots down. And on that next inhale, allow it to fill and lift you up into Virabhadrasana on the other side. As I said before, arms can reach up with palms apart or maybe sweeping them together in front of the chin. Gaze running up along the forearm and over the thumb knuckle. Holding here for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Exhale, floating down. Step that left foot back. Hello again, plank. Here we are. You can always come onto forearms if it's a little too much on the wrists. For 5, 4, squeezing inner thighs together. 3, 2, toning along the front body. 1, chaturanga. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, peeling up for your back bend, maybe up dog. Exhale, engage the core as we roll over the toes, up and back, downward facing dog. We're going to bring the knees down here, coming into child's pose. So pull the hips back, arms stay extended forward. If child's pose isn't working for you today, you can always take puppy pose as well, or maybe find an option somewhere in between the two that works for you. Knowing that it's your practice, taking whatever pose or shape that you feel in your body. Knees can be wide apart or close together. And then inhale, bringing the gaze up towards the hands. On an exhale, lifting up into tabletop position. Curl those toes, lifting the legs up. Remember, feet are always about hip distance apart in down dog. Our gaze is looking back in between the calf behind us. And then on an inhale, looking at the hands, look at the space between the feet and the hands. Step your feet half of that distance forward in the center of your mat, and then walk the hands back towards the feet. So we're in a soft forward fold position. Keep a nice bend in the knees. Option to place the hands on the shins, on the ankles, or maybe wrapping peace fingers around the big toes. On an inhale, finding length or extension through the spine, not worrying about coming up halfway. Focus on that extension through the spine. And then exhale, folding down. That same contracting option when we breathe out, using that to draw the core towards the thighs. The muscles along the back relaxing, top of the head pointing down. Still finding a bit of room for that controlled inhale, focusing on expanding through the ribs as the belly's a little compacted. Exhale, can the quadriceps, those top thigh muscles, pull down, creating more of a fold through the hips. Inhale once more, finding extension in the spine, maybe extending through the legs this time as we lift. And then exhale, coming back down to that folded position. Maybe only having to do a slight bend in the knees this time. That's why we hold these deeper folds a little bit longer, slowly releasing tension, allowing the muscles, the hamstrings in this case, to lengthen. We come up halfway for a little reset release, and then come back down to explore some of that new space we've created. Inhale, rising up halfway. Exhale, release the hands if they were around the toes. And then inhale, rolling all the way up into a standing position. And we'll step towards the top of the mat if we're not already there somehow. So coming into chair pose in our next sequence of poses here. Arms are going to be down by the sides, samastitihi, or ready position. Feet are about hip distance apart, so we're going to bring them a little bit closer so that knees are touching and inner thighs. Chair pose, Utkatasana. Inhale, bend the knees, sweep the fingers along the sides as a depth marker for our chair pose. And then inhale, rising up. Arms can be overhead or maybe coming in at heart center. And we're going to hold here for 5, 4, 3. Hello, thighs. Maybe you're feeling them burn a little bit here. I know mine are too. 2. One more breath to go. Breathing in through the nose. And exhale, fold the head and heart down, hips come up. Inhale, that halfway lift or extension. And then exhale, step the right foot back, coming into that runner's lunge position, maybe on the fingertips here. Coming into our revolve twist, right palm, fingertips, or on a block, we'll plant down. Revolve twist. Inhale, reaching, drawing that left arm up like it's a bow. Fingertips reaching towards the ceiling here. Exhale to sink and hold our twist. Option to place that left hand onto the left hip, or maybe directly on top of the left knee, helping twist and open the chest. If we're looking to go a little deeper, perhaps bringing a half bind option in. Whatever option works to help you roll the chest open here. Noticing if we're starting to lift the hips up to get our rotation, can we still maintain that lunge position? And then exhale, left hand floats back down, our runner's lunge. We're going to come into extended side angle. So those two blocks that we have, maybe placing one under the left hand, outside of the left foot, or maybe coming up onto that left forearm on the left thigh. Right heel is going to pivot down, so now that right foot's parallel with the short side of the mat. Our extended side angle can either be from here with forearm planting down, hand on the block outside of that left foot, or with the hand, but we'll inhale to roll the chest open. Right hand reaching overhead towards the front of the mat, palm facing down, almost as if the pinky fingers could spiral under. Still trying to find that depth in our lunge for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Coming up to warrior 2. Inhale, cartwheel that right arm, drawing us up. It's okay if that left leg straightens, taking a bit of a break. Arms are extending out, left leg reaching forward, left arm reaching forward. And then exhale if we're not there already. Let's come back. Warrior 2, Virabhadrasana 2. So making sure that we can still see the big toe on that left foot, gently pulling over towards the pinky toe side. Right foot planting down into not only that outer edge of the foot, but can we still press down through the big toe knuckle, finding some inner thigh engagement. Arms are out at shoulder height or holding onto the hips here. We'll take 2 more. Big breath. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out of the mouth. Once more, in through the nose. Out of the mouth. Flipping the front palm up. Inhale, reverse warrior. Right hand sliding down the right leg. Left arm reaching up. Still maintaining that lunge. I know thighs are burning a little here. Reaching up. Gaze can follow the hand up or stay at an angle towards the front of the room. Finding that same side body stretch here we did in our seated position. And then inhale, come back, warrior 2. Exhale, cartwheel the hands down either side of that left foot. Right heel slides up. Vinyasa, slide the left foot back into your version of plank. Chaturanga, lower down or maybe hover. Inhale, peeling up for your back bend. Exhale with the core engaging to lift. Pull up and then back, downward facing dog. Taking a cleansing inhale here. And exhale to release that first side. And then bending the knees, gazing forward. We're going to step the right foot forward in between the hands, coming into warrior 1 on the other side. So left heel spirals down and inhale, rising up. But we're not doing warrior 1 here. We're doing our twisting lunge with chair pose. So exhale, fold it back down, stepping back into our downward facing dog here. We'll get back into our sequencing. So we are going to step that right foot forward in between the hands, but in our runner's lunge this time. Left palm presses down on a block or onto the mat. We're going to draw the bow with the right side. Inhale, drawing that right hand up towards the ceiling. Twisting lunge. Noticing if we start our lunge with hips elevated, can we exhale, bring them back down? Creating that ever so subtle diagonal line coming from the shoulders, down the spine, and down that left leg. Again, various arm positions. Maybe right hand on that right knee to help open up. Maybe right hand extended or coming down on the hip, or that half bind along the low back. Choosing an option that helps aid you in that revolving of the chest. And then exhale, sweep that right hand back down. Extended side angle. So maybe grabbing our other block onto the right side of our mat if it's not there already. Right hand can be on the block. Or maybe bring right forearm up onto the thigh. Left heel has spiraled down now, parallel with the short side of the mat. And on an inhale, we're going to sweep left arm forwards, overhead, rolling the chest open as we do so. Still pulling the arm into the shoulder socket though, so not reaching up towards the ceiling, this sweeping motion forward and then drawing back. Still finding some engagement on the inner thigh. And then getting ready for warrior 2. That left hand's gonna propel us up. Inhale, rising up. We can straighten that front leg as we rise up. And then exhale, dive in. Virabhadrasana 2. Imagining that there's a tear halfway across your mat and that we're trying to push the feet in those opposite directions, ripping the mat apart. Allowing us to find some of that inner thigh engagement on both legs. So the opposite of scissoring together, we're stretching them apart. Left hand comes down, right palm flips up. Inhale, exalted warrior, reaching up and back. Oftentimes this pose can be known as reverse warrior as well. I like reverse warrior to have a straightened front leg, so feel free to take that reverse warrior here, or staying in the strength building burn in our bent leg lunge on the right leg. Inhale, back to warrior two. Exhale, cartwheel the hands down either side of that front foot. Step the right foot back, coming into plank. Move through our vinyasa. Exhale, lower down or hover. Inhale, peeling up for your back bend. Exhale, downward facing dog. Perhaps arriving with a large exhale here. Taking a deep inhale and exhale. On our next inhale, come forward into tabletop position onto hands and knees, and then slide the hips back, coming on top of the heels into hero pose. So this one we're going to be practicing some camel pose variations, opening up the front body. If it's uncomfortable to be seated like this, we're not going to be here for long. Feel free to curl the toes under or stand up immediately onto the shins and knees. Here we're going to take our first version, or baby camel. So reaching the hands back, not in line with the hips, but see if we can come a far ways back so we feel that stretch starting across the shoulders and the chest. On an inhale, using the glutes or using the quadriceps in the front body here, start to lift up. Gaze can be looking down our stomach. And then exhale, can the glutes and hamstrings start to fire, lifting up, rounding the front body. Chin can stay glued to chest, or maybe gaze starts to come up. This is our baby version or first version of camel pose. We can continue to explore, going deeper in the pose from here, or repeat this version each time. Exhale, sink the hips back down, walking the hands so the torso is stacked above the hips. From here, we're going to move into our next version or wave of camel, Ustrasana. Inhale, come to stand on top of knees and shins. So hips are stacked directly over the knees. They're about hip width apart. We're going to curl the toes under for this one. And just working on opening up through the thoracic upper body before dumping into our low back and trying to bring the full arch in. So we can interlace fingers behind the back or grab opposite wrists here. Inhale, start to press those knuckles down. Shoulders start to compress down, and then just open the chest up towards the ceiling. So finding some strength not only in the front core muscles, but also our back core here. We're not trying to dump back, but just finding some opening for the chest and the sternum to shine up towards the ceiling here. Gaze may find it easier to look up towards the ceiling. Added challenge of lifting the arms off of our rear, or maybe keeping them pressed there. And then exhale, chin comes to chest. Come down into a seated position. Top of the feet can be flat. Take a deep inhale here, opening the chest up. Exhale, coming back to that center line. Once more. Inhale, opening the chest up. Exhale, coming back to center. We're going to move through into a more traditional camel from here. Inhale, rising up to stand on the knees once more. Curling the toes under for a little bit of added support through the legs. Now this one, think like our low lunge and warrior one. We were really challenging ourselves to maintain those extended arms overhead and the gaze. We're going to do that here. So on an inhale, reach the arms straight up overhead to start. Gaze can be forward. And then see if we can bring the arms a little bit behind the head, more in line with the ears. And then exhale with that core engagement, starting to bring the gaze up as well. Reaching the arms up and back still. Can we find that shaky breath here? And then exhale, coming down into our seated position. Allow for that reset. Knowing that these are just different versions for you to explore doesn't mean you have to take that opportunity each and every time today. Maybe coming through one of those earlier versions, you want to come back to explore that one deeper. There's no right or wrong way to do these poses, just finding what works for you and suits your needs today. On an inhale, coming back up onto the knees. If we like, we can explore coming deeper into full Ustrasana here. So toes typically will curl under when we're going for that reach back on the heels, or maybe placing the blocks on either side of the ankle bones, that large round protruding bone that hurts when we clip it on the metal bed frame. That's the one we want to line up with. Our hands are going to go on top of the block here with fingertips pointing forward, maybe even fingers hanging down. From that standing position on the knees, we'll inhale, finding that length, opening the chest up like we did with those interlaced fingers. And then exhale, slowly leaning back, this nice long line, finding the blocks, or maybe finding the ankle bones and the heels. If we're reaching for the heels, thumbs are in, fingers are out. And then inhale, opening the chest up, allowing the core to lift forward. So not this dumping back and hips pressing towards an imaginary wall. Really find that lift through the front body, allowing the core to come forward and chest to reach up towards the ceiling. We can stay strong through the neck and head gaze up, or if it feels okay, allowing the head to fall back. On an inhale, bring the gaze back up, and then exhale, tucking chin to chest. Slowly come back to seated, and then come into child's pose. So top of the feet are flat, and then sweep the arms along the sides. So knees are together in this child's pose. Forehead coming down towards the mat. If the head doesn't quite reach the mat, but we want a little bit of padding, feel free to put a block underneath or stack the palms. Allowing the spine to feel the support of the body underneath, or the legs underneath the torso, I should say. Oftentimes these back bends can feel scary, but seeing if we can really in that moment decide, is this scary or is this exhilarating and new sensation from our normal day-to-day? On an inhale, slowly bringing the gaze back up, coming on to hands and knees, coming back into tabletop position. So knees are underneath the hips and about hip width apart. We're going to do some bird dog opening positions here. So our first option, inhale, right leg reaches back, toes stay connected, or maybe those toes reach up and float. And then opposite hand, left arm reaching forward. And instead of finding that core strength, can we bring a bit more of an arch into our back in our bird dog? And then exhale, crunch, draw knee to elbow underneath the torso as we press up like our cat position. Inhale, thinking like cow, but we're floating, reaching up. Exhale, drawing in, crunch underneath. Inhale, reaching out. Opportunity to go deeper into the posture here. Bending at the knee, sweeping that left arm back to make a connection with the ankle or foot, and then gently pressing in. Just because there's an opportunity to go deeper into the posture doesn't mean you have to accept that opportunity today. Perhaps staying in that extended arch position is for you today. And then exhale, crunch, pulling in, knee to elbow. And then release, hand and knee down onto the mat. We'll repeat on the other side, seeing if you want to take that opportunity for the other side. So inhale, left leg back, maybe floating it up. And then reach the right arm forward as well, bringing a bit of an arch in. And then exhale, crunch, pulling, rounding, lifting the spine up. Inhale, extend and lift. Exhale, crunching in. Once more. Inhale, reaching, opening up. Maybe bending the knee, sweeping that right hand back. Catching the foot wherever you are there. And then pressing foot into hand. Staying strong in that left shoulder. Release if we haven't already. And then exhale, crunch once more. And release, hand and knee down, coming back to our tabletop position. From here, we're gonna step one foot back, then the other, into plank. Hello, plank. Chaturanga time. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, lifting up for the back bend of your choice. Exhale, downward facing dog. Again, we can always adjust that stance. Oftentimes from plank, it's not the ideal alignment for our down dog. So here's where we're gonna start to work on the upper body if you're not feeling it already. We're gonna come down into dolphin pose. So we can come from down dog, slide that block out of the way. From down dog, we can work bending the knees soft, lowering elbows down. Or if we want to take more of an alignment-based intro into the pose, we'll bring the knees down into tabletop and then come down onto our forearms. We can grab opposite elbows, checking for alignment and spacing in the arms, and then bring the forearms parallel once more, fingertips pointing forward. Curl the toes under, lifting the knees up, finding the right amount of bend in the knees that we can bring the heels a little bit closer down towards the mat. Holding here, finding that opening through the chest, so we're not stacking like a headstand here. We are trying to find a little bit of opening, allowing the heart to come down. For 3, 2, 1. Not coming down yet. Can we rise up onto tiptoes? Feeling more of that dynamic flexibility here, that strength as well as stretch here in the shoulders as we lift the heels up. For 3, 2, 1. Exhale, bring the knees down, sink the hips back over the heels, child's pose. Arms can remain forward or sweep along behind us. Giving the shoulders a little reprieve before we're coming right back into it. So sliding forward, if we kept the arms planted down, we know exactly where we're going. If not, quick alignment check. Place the palms down, curl the toes. Here we go, dolphin pose, number 2. Lifting the knees and hips up. Finding that positioning with the feet where we feel supported. And then inhale, coming up onto the toes. Exhale, bring the heels back down. We're going for a different challenge this time. 3-legged dolphin pose. So on an inhale, right leg reaching up towards the ceiling for 5, 4, you guys can do it. 3, 2, 1. Bring that right leg down, going straight into the left side. So inhale, reach that left leg up, maybe coming onto the toes on that right side for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, bring the toes down. We're going to come forward into a forearm plank. So stepping the legs back, bringing the chest through the shoulders into our forearm plank. And then exhale, releasing down onto the mat. Inhale, peeling up for your back bend. Exhale, downward facing dog. Walk those toes in. And now we're actually going to come into a seated pose from here. So bringing the gaze forward, bending the knees. We can come down into table, slide the feet to the side, eventually forward, or maybe working on a bit of a jump through in our practice. Bending the knees, gaze comes forward. We're going to cross the ankles as we drag the shins across the mat. Maybe coming just before the hands, in between the hands, or maybe even further. On that exhale, pulling the feet down, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Maybe you get stuck and come down into your seated position. From here, we're going to extend the legs forward into Dandasana or staff pose. So legs extend, planting the heels down, finding some length in the upper body. So if you're like me, can't press the hands down because then we start to lift with these monkey arms. So finding a slight bend, elbows aren't flared out, we're pulling them in, and just find that active engagement. Heels maybe lift up off the mat, thighs are squeezing together as well as the quads lifting up. Core is lifting, chest is open for 3, 2, 1. Release to soften. We're going to come into a forward fold, Paschimottanasana. So maybe releasing some of that soft tissue out from under our seat. On an inhale, finding length. Exhale, start to bow forward. Hands can hold on to the ankles, onto the feet, shins, wherever it's comfortable. Maybe those peace fingers wrapping around the big toes once more. We're going to inhale again, finding that extension through the spine. Sound familiar? Just like our standing forward fold. And then exhale, bowing down. Noticing I'm not mentioning rounding where we're crunching the head down towards the knees, but just allow the torso to drape down over the legs. Allowing the muscles of the back to relax. Maybe noticing if we have to release some of those muscles to relax. Simply burning and releasing the tension as we hold. We're going to inhale, coming up for that extension, still holding on to the ankles or feet. If we want to adjust, going a little deeper, we can hold on to the sides of the feet. Or if you want to work some of that fascia on the soles of the feet to stretch, we can place palms over top of the toes, bending them back. Ooh, feeling a bit more intensity stretch through the heel even and ankle. Inhale with that length. Exhale, folding, bowing down. Again, finding a little control to deepen that fold through the front muscles of the legs and the core. Inhale, come up halfway, gaze lifts, and then exhale, roll all the way up. We're going to come into Lord of the Fish pose, or Mary. I couldn't even think of the Sanskrit name there for a moment, but we're going to pull that right knee up into the chest here. Matsyendrasana, there we go. We had a little brain blockage for a moment. So we can keep that right foot on the inside of the left leg, or maybe cross it over to the outside of the left leg. We're going to inhale, hug that right knee in with the left arm as we open the chest up. And release those right fingertips down. So kind of layering this pose a bit different than we normally do in classes. So fingertips are reaching down, just initiating this twist, thinking of the spine remaining nice and long out of the pelvis, and we're revolving on that axis. We can stay here, hugging the knee into the chest. We can always come to be seated on a block as well, just giving that added space once again in the hips. Or maybe bring the outside of that left arm against the knee, fingers pointing up. Or here's an opportunity once more to deepen our posture, perhaps extending that left arm along the outer edge of the right leg. Both arms in a similar mirrored position, extending, reaching down. If we want to go deeper once more, explore opportunities. We can swing that left heel to the outside of the right hip, keeping that left arm extended. Inhale, gaze comes forward. Exhale, releasing the arms, releasing the legs. Going to do a little reset of the twist by engaging the core in an L-sit. So placing the palms down, not beside the hips, forward a little bit. Think of those Dandasana, staff leg positioning, squeezing the legs in, and then pressing, lifting the hips up. Can we imagine lifting these legs up off the floor together? And then exhale, come back down on the mat. Draw that left knee in towards the chest, staying here, or placing the foot outside of the knee. Hugging that knee in, we start to twist towards the left. Hug, wrap that right arm around the thigh. Left hand this time reaching out behind us, helping us revolve, but not lean back or forward, keeping that center line as we twist. And here's opportunity once more, perhaps bringing the outside of the right arm to the outer point of the knee. Maybe extending the arm along the length of that left leg. If we keep the right leg extended, actively holding that position through the hip, through the length of the leg, down the calf, or maybe sliding that right heel to the outer left hip. Gazing where it's comfortable, but see if we can start to inch towards the back of the room, the back of your mat. Inhale, gaze comes forward. Exhale, release the arms, release the legs down, giving them a little shake. This time to help open up the hips, coming into reverse table. So bringing the hands back, think like our baby camel position, and then soles of the feet press down about hip width apart. Imagine you're squeezing a block in between the thighs. And inhale, reverse table, lifting up. Imagining the torso and thighs are parallel with the mat as we lift. Maybe letting the head fall back, gaze coming directly above. And then exhale, sinking the hips back down, keeping the soles of the feet down. So those two blocks we have, here's where we're really using them today. So grab our blocks and place them along the sides of the hips, not directly along, but a little bit forward. And then a little bit wider, so they're not quite touching our hips, but a little bit out to the sides here. We're gonna go through a boat parade, or I guess maybe a regatta, it could be called, working through the core, and this is gonna be coming out of the Ashtanga lineage a little bit, through some of the movements. So we're gonna be doing our boat pose positions, and then doing a lift up using the blocks. So starting out in our boat pose, we're gonna do 3 of them. We'll point the toes down, heels are lifted. If you wanna come in a different variation right off the bat, feel free, whether that's shins floating or lifting one leg at a time. Arms are gonna reach forward, heels lift up, toes pointed, try to avoid the cramps, and then leaning the torso back till we feel that oblique engagement and a little shake. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, slowly roll down. Keep the feet in that position. Shoulders and head remain curled up here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, maybe grab on to lift back up to our boat pose. We are gonna cross those ankles, plant the hands on the blocks, and inhale, lifting the hips up. Maybe the feet come up. Probably not, but squeezing in, lifting the torso, holding just a little bit longer, lift, 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 and then come back down. Boat number 2, we can keep that same leg position here, or maybe floating the shins up, finding that balance though on our sits bones, not crunching onto the tailbone. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rolling down here, and again, toes can stay pointed, or maybe extending the legs, but head and shoulders roll up. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, drawing up, cross the opposite ankle on front, pressing onto the blocks, lifting up, holding it here, lift, 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 feel that core burning. And then release back down, but we're releasing into Navasana, boat pose once more. So we can keep the toes pointing. We can float the shins up, or maybe extending the legs. Find your version. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, rolling down, maybe extending the legs this time. Shoulders float up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, coming back up. Cross the ankles. Last time. Lift up, pressing into the blocks. Lift those hips up. And then coming back down onto our seat. Release the feet out in front. We'll slide the blocks out of the way for now. And we're going to recline down on our back. No more core challenging here. Slowly roll down. We're going to keep the knees together, but walk the feet out. So we're in a bit of this knock-kneed position, giving some release to the low back and the hips. We can place one hand on the belly, one hand on the heart, and allow our focus to come back into the breath, into the body, creating that connection between mind and body by focusing not on just the action of breathing, but on the sensations that it brings. Inhale, release the arms by the sides. Bring the feet more in line with the hips. Coming into bridge pose, just to give a bit of release for that front body after our regatta. So on an inhale, start to lift the hips up, feeling that positioning. Ankles should be underneath of the knees here. And we can stay palms pressing down, lifting up. Or maybe start to walk the shoulders underneath so that the neck is elevated, spine lifts, and then really press into the heels, bringing that rounding into the upper back and into the chest here. And then exhale, slowly roll, releasing the shoulders, coming back down onto the mat. Hug the knees up into the chest, wrapping the arms around them, whether knees are close together or far apart, toes touching. Gently roll side to side, massaging the spine. Coming into happy baby if you like, so soles of the feet reaching up, hands can grab the inner arches, ankles, or those peace fingers on big toe once more. And continue that side to side rock. And then bringing knees together over the chest. We're going to come into legs up the wall. So if you want, if there's a wall close by, you can shimmy over, placing the hips against the wall. Usually I find coming into it in a twist so that you can bring the hips against the wall. And then stack the legs up the wall is an option. Maybe grabbing our block, sliding it underneath the hips, and then elevating the legs up. Gives an added boost, allowing gravity to have that blood return to the heart. Or a new version, I might ask for you to try pointing the toes, legs nice and long. Reach them back towards the floor so that you can place the palms down right at that crease point of the hips meeting the thighs. See if we can press the heel of the hand down into that crease, fingertips up along the thigh, and then let those pointed legs, doesn't have to be complete extension, a soft bend, but a point through the ankle. Let the thighs press back into the hands, elbows and back triceps pressing down, and just let the hips stay connected to the mat, but those thighs pressing down into the legs. Feeling a little bit of support while here in the middle of the room with the legs up. Perhaps feeling little shakes, little tremors. Observing that sensation, but not judging or trying to change and control. And then your next exhale, we're going to draw the heels down towards the seat. Can hug the knees in one more time. Coming into a reclined twist. So option here, we can spread the arms out into that T shape, palms facing down, or maybe flipping the palms up and bending at the elbows, coming into a 90-degree angle. Either option is there for you to try on the shoulders. And then exhale, allow the knees to fall over towards the right side. Knees can remain stacked, one on top of each other. A little bit more support. If we want to explore going deeper into the pose in our intensity, we're going to bring that right foot down, keeping the knee bent, and then come over into our twist so that the left foot is supported on the inside of that right knee. And then maybe we extend that right leg down towards the top of the mat. So now left foot is down on the mat. It doesn't have that support underneath, so it's coming down a little bit further, intensifying that stretch. Can keep the right leg bent or extend the right foot towards the top of the mat. On an inhale, draw both knees back up to center. And then you're going to mirror or reflect that same positioning on the other side. So however we went into the right side, we're going to roll over towards the left, doing the same position. Gaze can be over the opposite shoulder, deepening a full spinal twist. Inhale, gaze comes to center. Bring the knees back to center. And then for our final posture of the practice, Shavasana. Extending the legs out. Opening up the arms, palms facing up into that anti-desk car phone position. I invite you to take one last deep inhale. Hold that breath in and squeeze every single muscle of the body. Squeeze and hold those muscles tight against our bones. Squeezing, holding that tension so tight. And then release with the breath. Allowing every molecule of the body to relax. Allowing yourself to bask in this period of rest, knowing that rest does not have to be earned by effort, but rather something we are inherently entitled to. No need to justify, simply taking what is yours.